I'm Chief Meteorologist Paul Wetzel.
And I'm meteorologist Ryan Halicki with 33 WYTV, and we're going to continue what we've been doing through the week. It's tracking this storm. We're on the eve of it. It gets here going into tomorrow, and we've seen just a couple of subtle changes in that today.
Yeah, it's had a lot of consistency to it most of the week, and as we get into tomorrow, the timing, this is one of those small changes. It's backed up a little, and that means some of that heavier snow will start to inch its way in later in the morning through midday, and then just get heavier on into the afternoon and evening. So over the past few days, it looked like it would be more into the afternoon. This is backed up just a few hours. So that's one of those differences. But either way, we're still looking at a heavy snow building in as this peaks on into your Saturday night before wrapping up by early Sunday morning.
And it's at that point in time, too, especially late Saturday, going in through the late evening and into the night, we could be talking about snowfall rates upwards of 1 to 2 inches per hour. So that, number one, is major problems for visibility. That's a major problem for keeping the streets clean, too. The road crews are going to be out there working pretty much nonstop through the weekend. But the problem is you plow over that, and within at an inch an hour rate in 30 minutes, you have another half inch on the ground. So it's really going to be difficult to keep up with that.
And as that snow continues to come on down, the wind is going to pick up through the evening as temperatures fall. And we're going to get into blowing and drifting snow as we head on into especially early Sunday morning. So some of these big impacts we're going to have to deal with out of the storm. Wind is one of them.
And we'll also start seeing those road conditions rapidly deteriorate as we go through Saturday afternoon. And really, I expect there to be trouble going right into Sunday. Even though the snow will start to wrap up early Sunday, it's that wind, that blowing and drifting snow. So especially when you get to those open areas or anywhere where there's a little bit of a clearing, the crews may have gone over the road already, but that's going to blow that snow right back on it.
And it is going to be a north wind blowing around on into a Sunday for us, gusting up to 30 miles per hour or higher. We'll get to that with a future tracker coming up here in a few minutes. So the wind also a variable in this storm that we have to deal with on into the weekend. So let's go ahead and talk about how this comes together starting tonight. We're not expecting a whole lot of snow, although some light snow showers and flurries will try to drift through the area overnight into the early morning. A quick dusting not out of the question here, but this is the very leading edge of this storm system. That heavier snow starts to push in later in the morning and then into midday, Ryan, and that's when we're looking for that moderate snow, and we're starting to talk about that inch per hour or higher totals.
And it's as we go through the evening that we'll be looking at the greatest chance at seeing that inch to up to 2 inches per hour. And you see that here. This is what it looks like at 6 o'clock on future radar Saturday evening. And really, that's trying to drive at that point really ill-advised. I would not recommend being out on the roads then. And what you'll notice as we go through the night, still seeing that. And one thing I do want to point out, this is a stop at 9 o'clock, and right here you see that rain-snow line. That's what we've been watching in the model data through today. That's one of the subtle changes that we've been seeing. As we've talked the last couple of days, models have had a difficult time placing that. We started seeing a lot of agreement today and a little bit of a just slight southward shift.
Yeah, it has moved it off to the south. Still think there's a small chance, especially across Columbiana County, that some sleet or an isolated pocket of freezing rain could mix in. But generally, it looks like this heavy, wet snow is going to be the problem through the first half of the night. And we talked about the dropping temperatures. Watch these temperatures drop as the wind picks up on through the night. By 1 o'clock, we're already starting to drop into the teens, and that steady, heavy snow also continuing to come on down. And the temperatures dropping through the middle teens, getting gusts to 20 to 30 miles per hour into the early morning. And here's when we expect the back edge of this storm to finally start to wrap up into early Sunday morning.
And it's as we move past sunrise, we'll still see some of that snow around, but you notice what happens. We get to 9, 10, 11 o'clock, it starts to shift east. By noon on Sunday, we don't expect a whole lot of that snow left. Still could be some lingering snow showers and flurries. And what we'll be watching for as we go through the day Sunday is the chance for a little bit of lake effect to set up. This is going to be a strong north wind. We're going to have very cold air aloft. That is the perfect setup for lake effect with one exception. This is a very cold Arctic air mass moving in, and Arctic air is typically very dry. This will be a dry air mass, so it may not be able to pick up enough moisture coming across the lake to really get that snow to develop. So we're going to be monitoring that closely, but the threat is there for some lake effect snow Sunday afternoon and evening.
The temperature is definitely cold enough to get it going, but like Ryan was talking about with this dry air building in, but still concerned about one of those snow showers popping off. So if we can squeeze one of these lake effect snow showers out Sunday into Sunday afternoon and evening, this is a very cold air. This would add up quickly as some of these snow showers get going. So a quick inch or two, not out of the question if one of those lake effect showers get going over your location. And there is a connection that goes back to Lake Huron well to our north, and that typically would produce the biggest lake effect snow for us. So this is another factor of the storm that we're monitoring closely on into Sunday and Sunday evening. But look at the temperatures. These are not wind chills. These are actually air temperatures dropping into the single digits as that Arctic air mass pours its way on into Sunday night and right on into early Monday morning. So several factors with this storm, the last of which being the colder temperatures around through the early part of Monday.
And so what I wanted to talk about was the that subtle change that we were watching with that rain snow line. We want to talk about the model consistency here. About 3 of the 4 models that you've seen in pretty good agreement with that. There's still that potential that rain snow line could inch just far enough to the north that it gets to Columbiana. This particular model you see here keeps that pink shade south of Columbiana County. We're looking at an additional model here that will show you that rain snow line also staying off to the south. This here, the European model, and the one exception to that being the GFS model. This has been the one that is tried routinely here to keep this rain snow line a little further north, but you see that pink shade there nosing through Columbiana County. That's the scenario where we see the lighter snow accumulations in the southern part of the viewing area, but really a wide swath of the area likely to see these pretty substantial accumulations here.
Yeah, and one thing we're watching here is where that heaviest snow band is going to be. So let's go ahead and take a look. This is our in-house model here talking about and showing you the snow on into the day tomorrow. As we approach midday into the afternoon, there is no question we could see anywhere from 3 or 4 inches up to 6 inches on through the evening. So we're in pretty good agreement with how this model is playing out tomorrow afternoon. And then on top of that, we're adding another 4 to 6 inches possible on into Sunday morning before we can finally shake some of that steady snow first thing Sunday morning. Now, this adds up. We're talking more than a foot, a possibility in some spots here on into Sunday, but this is just one of the models we're looking at.
And what we expect in the setup here is there to be about a 20 to 40 mile wide swath here where we have the heaviest accumulation ranges, and that is going to hinge heavily on the exact track of that low pressure system. That's also part of why that rain snow line is key. That's an indication of where the low is tracking. If that trends a little further north, that means the storm's pushing a little further north, and that could push some of these higher amounts just slightly further to the north. But as we look at a couple of the other models here, you see there's a lot of agreement showing that swath right through the center of the viewing area, and you see this particular model, this is the one though that showed that rain snow line. This is the GFS, showed it pushing into Columbiana County. That you see shifts that heavier amounts just slightly to the north. So,
and this is one that has been changing a little over the past couple of days because it can't quite handle whether or not it wants to bring that sleet and that rain into the forecast.
And that's so based on what we're seeing here and what we've been watching for, you see this particular model shows that heavier snow also a little bit further to the south.
And this one actually is the low-end model, so let's keep this in mind. We've been looking at all these different models here. This one is the lowest out of any of them, but still it's a significant snowfall, even on the low end. We're talking a range from 7 to 11.3 there in East Liverpool. So even on the low end of the scale, this is going to be a significant storm with heavy snow moving into the area, Ryan.
And that's what you see on this one too. Notice northwest Trumbull County, that purple shade inching in there. That would be the lighter end of the accumulation ranges that we're seeing. So there's really 2 ways that this plays out here. Most of the area sees that heavier snow accumulation is what we're expecting in our range here that you'll see of about 8 to 12 inches. There's a couple of spots that we're watching that could be a little bit lighter, a little bit closer to the lower end. One of those, southern Columbiana County here, and that's if that rain snow line can make its way far enough north and change things over. If this storm system were to shift just slightly south from what we're seeing, the trend that's been going on today, that could pull some of the accumulation numbers down up toward northern Trumbull County and even into northwestern Mercer. So that's kind of the two areas that we're watching.
Yeah, and we talked about that little swath of heavy snow being 20 to 40 miles, roughly 30 miles wide. And we've been talking about this through the week here. This is a storm that it's 400 to 500 miles wide. So we're talking 30 miles out of a storm that big. That is just a little bobble in the storm track. So that's why we're talking about this high-end accumulation. Likely it will be somewhere within our region from Trumbull County down to the Ohio River. The biggest question is exactly where that heaviest swath is going to lay by the time we get on into Sunday morning. But overall, our track has been fairly consistent through the week here, looking for generally 8 to 12 inches, Ryan, and in some spots even more.
As the possibility is there that we see some spots inching into the teens, between 13 to 16 inches on the high end, and we'll have to watch again for that possibility for some lake effect trying to develop in here going through the day Sunday that could add to these accumulation numbers. But again, that track, just a subtle wobble, could lead a couple of spots there into the low end of the accumulation ranges, but really expecting the overwhelming majority of the area to have a really heavy snow.
And we're getting right into crunch time here. The storm's moving in tomorrow, and one thing that we can tell you is these numbers really haven't changed that much this week. We're talking about an inch or two difference from when we started talking about this and started doing these updates earlier this week. And again, so either way, it's still a heavy snow, yes, but the models have been fairly consistent overall when you look at the amount of snow expected as we work our way into the weekend with this storm system. So this is one of our problems, is not only the snow, but also we're talking temperatures turning cold on the backside of this system. And looking ahead here, you factor in the wind, some of those feels like temperatures dropping well below zero for us into Sunday.
And that says you're wanting to get out there and try and shovel, or the kids are wanting to go out and play in all the snow on the ground. So keep in mind these types of wind chills, they lower the time that it would take for you to develop frostbite in as little as 30 minutes possible. So you got to make sure that you're covering up when you're going out there. Make sure you're properly bundled when you go to shovel. That gusty wind between 30 to 40 miles per hour you see drives those wind chills down to as low as 10 to 15 below zero as we start getting into Sunday evening.
That's brutal cold coming in our way as starting Sunday morning into the afternoon and evening as the temperatures fall and that wind picks up, and that's not going to stop. Now the good news, the wind won't be as gusty later Sunday into Sunday night as it will earlier in the morning because the storm system is pulling out and away from the area, but we're going to be dealing with wind gusts 30 to up to 35, possibly 40 miles per hour at points overnight into early Sunday morning, and that's coming with that heavy snow. So blowing and drifting snow, one of the bigger problems with this storm on into Sunday morning, let alone the heavier snow coming down. Right.
And so with that wind gusting, when those temperatures start to drop, it again will cause that problem of reduced visibility across the area. It's going to have that full-on snow globe effect. And so as you're going out there, again, remember to bundle up. And I've talked about this the last couple days, and I just want to reiterate that point, that when you do go out there to shovel, especially if you're doing this in the height of the storm, when we're looking at that heavier wet snow before we really start to see the temperatures drop, just take it easy, be mindful of your health and your fitness level. It's a lot of snow that you'll have to shovel out there. And again, we oftentimes, when you get these bigger storms moving into areas, you can see upticks in 911 calls due to cardiac events. So I really just want to stress that make sure that you're being safe when you're out there trying to move the snow that's coming.
Absolutely, and we don't want to forget about the pets either. Don't forget, they need water as much as you can, and I know those, it sounds so simple, but you know, cold temperatures, obviously, we're all, especially with dry air coming in, this Arctic type air, you're thirsty. You become more thirsty. You're getting dehydrated with that dry air moving in, and plus the cold temperatures. We don't want to forget about that. Now, we are going into the weekend here. This is our last update this week before the storm hits. However, as we go through the weekend. We will both be here on through the weekend, of course, tracking the storm as it moves on through. As we get into Saturday and Saturday night, we'll be hitting at the top of the hour live streams of weather, so giving updates on the storm every hour on into your Saturday afternoon and evening. And then, of course, you can always catch us on our newscasts too. So we'll be doing radar updates. We'll also be doing storm updates and how this storm is changing on through the weekend. So probably our biggest, most significant winter storm so far this season. I don't know if we're done at this point. We're looking into later next week. We won't even go there yet, but we are tracking the potential of another storm. We'll see how that plays out. We got to get through this weekend first, Ryan.
And that's as we go through Saturday and Sunday, again, you come right back here every hour on the hour. We will be doing those updates. We'll also be coordinating with our newsroom and getting you any information on what's going on across the valley. That would be updates on any adjustments, cancellations, updates on road conditions. We're going to have crews live in the field. We really, across the board, are going to have this storm covered, and we're going to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to keep you updated.
That's right. And again, we want to thank you for spending a few minutes with us here each evening as we've been doing these weather updates. Hopefully they've been helpful to you trying to make your plans for the weekend. We'll catch up again tomorrow. We'll see where we're at by this time tomorrow night. We'll be into the heart of the storm, so we'll see how it's panning out and on into your weekend. So again, meteorologist Paul Wetzel along with Ryan Halicki here. Thanks for watching.